Happy Saturday. I have got my July wrap up ready for you guys. I'm on top of it and I'm posting this on July 29th. You know what? I'm wrapping up a little bit early this month, so there's a chance I will finish more books. But there's only 2 days left, so I'll just put them in. August wrap up. We're all good. My Goodreads goal for this year is to read 50 books. My Goodreads goal last year was to read 50 books, and I read exactly 50 books. So I figured I would aim for the same thing again. And it's going really well. I'm currently 7 books ahead of schedule, and I don't think this has ever happened to me before. I have read 35 books so far this year, and it's the end of July. So I'm pretty proud of that. I think that's pretty good. And if I make it to 50 this year, I will be one happy girl because, I don't know, I feel like reading 50 books is, for me personally, is doable. But also I'm pushing myself a little bit. Like, I'm trying to get myself to read more than I would without the goal. So that's what 50 books is for me. And it's always hard when you're talking about Goodreads goals because it's different for every person, or just goals in general, because one person's life is very different from the other. So obviously one person's goals are going to be very different from another. But just remember, like, if your goal is to read 2 or 3 books this year, or 1, that's amazing. You're reading a book, you're gaining knowledge, you're hopefully enjoying yourself, and if it brings you joy, that's all that matters. I'm going to talk about the books I read this month. We've got the physical copies I have right here. So I read 7 books this month, as I said, and I don't have all the physical copies because some of the books I read were library books. So the first book I started reading this month was The Game Can't Love You Back by... Wait, I don't want to buy it. No. My laptop right here. My Goodreads. Here, I'll put it here. By Carol Kozo. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I think it's Carol Kozo. Now, this book was really enjoyable. It was an enemies to lovers novel, and it was a sports romance, but both the guy and the girl in this romance were high school athletes, which I really liked. I really like it when they're both athletes. It just, you know, doubled the sports romance. That's my sort of thing. Ugh. It's too loud. This book is like a hardcore enemies to lovers where they're both fighting for this trophy and they're both on the same baseball team, and it gets a little bit into how she's a girl on a male baseball team and how that's challenging. Honestly, I would not go into this book looking for a feminist novel of any sort. That was not what this book was. It was a romance. It was a cheesy romance. But I rated it 3.5 stars. This book was, I really enjoyed the enemies to lovers aspect because, as I said, it was really hardcore. They were enemies through most of the book. They hated each other down to like the very end, and I liked it. It was fun to read. Honestly, I don't feel like I gained any knowledge or anything, any insights from that book, but I didn't go into it expecting that. So I was satisfied. I was happy. I'm not sure if I will recommend this book. Let me think about that for a second. I would not recommend this book to everyone. If you read really quickly and you're just looking for a romance to pass the time and are fond of the enemies to lovers, then yeah, I would suggest picking it up. If you're someone who reads slower and will spend like a few weeks on a book kind of picking it apart and looking for hidden depths in a romance even, this is not the one for you. It was quite surface level. It was still enjoyable, but it just I didn't find it had much depth. But again, depends on how you read it. I then went and read The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. So this book was actually a Wattpad book. I hadn't read it when it was on Wattpad, but I'd seen it on Wattpad maybe a few years ago when I was in my Wattpad stage. Don't worry, I'm still in my Wattpad stage. I rated this book 3 stars. Now, I was going to rate it 2 stars for most of the book because that's how I was feeling. However, the end really changed my mind, and the end kind of changed everything for me. This book had a really interesting take on divorce and how it affects a child. I feel like I liked reading that aspect of it. I found it really interesting. It gave me a lot more empathy and a lot more understanding on the subject, I feel like. However, the romance in this novel, I was not really invested in the romance. I started this book because it was fake dating. And in case you don't know, I am the fake dating queen. I love fake dating. That, I made it sound like I am fake date everyone. No. I've never dated anyone. That's all you need to know. I love fake dating in books so much. Like, fake dating fan club right here. It's my favorite trope ever made. So I heard this book had fake dating, so I was super excited, and I was just, I had such high hopes. But I didn't like the relationship all that much. I mean, they were cute. Again, I felt like it was YA. This was another YA book, so it was kind of surface level, the relationship between them. Didn't have a lot of depth. There wasn't a lot to it. And honestly, I don't think I would recommend this book. Hold on. The author, I just learned something. The author started writing as a teen, so there's a chance she wrote this book as a teen, which gives me a whole new perspective. It honestly felt like it was written by a teenager, because it felt like I was reading similar writing to my own, probably better, but similar, because it felt kind of angsty. I rarely feel like a book is a waste of my time, so I didn't feel like this book was a waste of my time. I was happy I read it, otherwise I would have been like wondering, oh my goodness, I missed out on a fake dating experience. So I was happy I read it. I then read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. Okay guys, wait, where did I put my books? Oh, okay. Now you should go read this book. I am going to start off by saying I definitely recommend this book to you. Ali Hazelwood wrote The Love Hypothesis, which is a very book talk famous book. It's very famous. I read The Love Hypothesis, but if I'm being honest, I suggest you read this book before The Love Hypothesis because I liked it even more. Ali Hazelwood clearly has skills. I rated this book, hold on. I have to... I rated this book a solid 4 stars. Towards the beginning, I was even leaning towards 4.5 stars. I love Ali Hazelwood books, especially this one. It was academic to rivals trope, and I don't read that trope a whole lot, but I am all for it. Yes, the guy in this book, my friend and I were messaging about the guy in this book because we kind of read it around the same time. She hated him near the end. I loved him. It was kind of interesting. So I think it can go either way, but I loved him. I think he was book boyfriend material for sure. The female main character in this book. Normally, I don't like the female main character, and I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. I loved the female main character. She was so likable. Just how her brain worked, how she loved cheese, how she understood how health insurance and health problems are so expensive. I don't have diabetes, also diabetes representation in this book. I don't have diabetes, but I have a lot of health issues and know how expensive medication, especially insulin, can be. So I love that representation in this book. I'll say Ali Hazelwood books are just carbon copies of each other, and to that I say no. I do not think so whatsoever. I think this book and The Love Hypothesis had the STEM aspect, but I enjoyed the STEM aspect in this book so much more. This felt slow burn like. I think that's why I liked it so much. But I would definitely suggest you read this book. Really good. Start with this if you haven't read an Ali Hazelwood book. Next, I read When in Rome, guys. So I have a reading vlog. I have a summer reading vlog on my channel where I read the next 2 books. I rated it 3.5 stars. It was enjoyable. It was one of the best small town romances I've read. I often don't really like small town romances, but this one was really good. However, I did really like all the side characters, and I'm very excited for the second book because I really liked Annie. I didn't really like the main characters, their chemistry, or I liked them apart. They were good characters, just when they came together I found it really unrealistic, and I found this romance a tiny bit unrealistic. Like, the premise is she crashes her car in his front yard, and then she kind of stays in his house for a few weeks. That is not that realistic. I'm glad I did read it. I wanted to know what it was about, and I really want to get to the next book in this series, Practice Makes Perfect. Now, if you really, really like small town romance, then yeah, I would recommend this book to you because it was some of the best small town romance I've read. I'm not a huge fan of the small town romance trope. I mean, I read it. It's hard to avoid. I do read it, but it just wasn't for me. I don't discourage you from reading it because Sarah Adams is an amazing author. She wrote The Cheat Sheet, which is one of my favorite sports romances, and I think I just went into this book looking for something more like The Cheat Sheet, when in reality this was very, very different. So maybe went into it with the wrong expectations. I would have rated it higher if I had thought differently. Now, the other book I read in that vlog was The Summer I Turned Pretty. Now, this book is a solid 5 stars, guys. This was the best romance I read this month. It's a lot deeper than a romance, I do have to say that. I am Team Conrad, as I said in the video. I don't want to be too repetitive, so I'm trying to think of some new things to say. I really like the mothers in this novel, Laurel and Susanna, and I found it so much more heartbreaking this time around, a lot more heartbreaking than the first time I read it. I know the second book is going to break me because I've heard it deals a lot with grief. You go into a summer book and like light and happy, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm crying my eyes out. That's the type of book this is. It's hard to find a page that's not highlighted in this book. I imagine I will reread this and go through it again. I can't wait to read the rest of this series this summer. It's going to be super fun, almost nostalgic for something you've never had series, and lets you have had a beach house with handsome boys, which for that, you are very lucky. This was actually my second time I reread this. Really enjoyable. I would recommend this to you, and I feel like everyone will go into this book like for a different reason. Like, I went into this book and really appreciated Laurel and Susanna and the family nostalgia and how the family worked and all the friendships. And then some people go into this book for like Belly and Jeremiah and Conrad and the love triangle, and that's what they love from the book. Then I read What You Gonna Do by Avery Flynn. I rated this book 3.5 stars. I read this, I picked it up on a rainy day a few days ago. It felt very autumnal that day, and I read over 200 pages that day alone of this book. And it was really enjoyable. It was good. I do wish I read it in the autumn because it is more of an autumnal book, but it was a rainy day and I couldn't help myself, so I'm kind of fine with that. Avery, yeah. Hello. You have to be quiet if you're coming in. Okay. Will you be quiet? Close the door. You're not gonna sit there. We all know you're gonna get bored. Where are you going? Goodbye. I probably will read the second book of this series when it comes out because it sounds very, it's a cute series. Honestly, this book had me like giving me whiplash from the back and forth, because one second it would be talking about like the magic system and how this witchingdom worked, and it would be like, oh, this is really childish. And I would be like, oh. Then it would go to like the chemistry and how they were attracted to each other and their relationship, and it would be like boom, and I'd be like, okay, we're in an adult book now, and that's how it would feel. So I feel like the cozy fantasy, which is what I think this is classified as, and the adult romance felt very weird mixed together. And that's why I ended up rating it 3.5 stars, because it was cool how Idris Lynn connected these two, and I think she did as good at the job as can be done. I just don't know if they're absolutely meant to be together, or if they're meant to be together through me. I think I would recommend this book in the autumn season, but when I look back on it, it was vibes, it was fun, it was a quick read, I enjoyed it. So I would recommend this to a lot of people I know this autumn who are looking for an autumn book. Ooh, I read The Grace Year last. So this is The Grace Year by Kim. I assume this name is French, but I may be mispronouncing it. So I read The Grace Year by Kim Leger. Or would it be Leggett? Maybe Leggett. I don't know. Kim Leger or Kim Leggett. Here's the confusion of speaking two languages. This book was the best book I read this month. I finished this month off with a bang. 5 stars. 5 stars, guys. Like 5 stars. It's so good. It's wild. Derek Crowley said this book felt like a theater dream, and I will have to agree. The middle of the book felt quite like a theater dream. Being you didn't know what was real and what wasn't, and it was so confusing, and it was like reality was playing tricks on you in this book because the character didn't know what was real and what wasn't, and it was done really well. I feel like it was a theater dream in the best way possible. The ending to this book blows your mind. The beginning of this book was really frustrating, and I only read the first 30 pages and then had to put it down for a few weeks. Just push through that because it gets amazing. The beginning is the world building of this thriller-like world. So that's what I have to tell you. It's so intriguing, this book. And I read it quite as a feminine empowerment novel, or a feminist novel. But I feel like depending on who you are, you could read it as the opposite. But I found it quite empowering to females and women and girls. It was heart-wrenching, this book. At times, I didn't even know how this was considered YA because it was terrifying sometimes. Haley Pham said this was one of the scariest thrillers she's ever read. And I hadn't read a thriller before and was like, you know what? Let's start with the scariest we can find, because I'm a 0 to 100 kind of person. This book, it blows your mind, guys. There was a romance aspect in this book. I wasn't really there through the romance. I was more there through the main character, Tierney, as a human. And if she was happy, I was happy. I didn't know what was going on half the time. That just added to the intrigue. And you got like little puzzle pieces. And there were so many plot twists at the end. It was just like plot twist after plot twist. And I was like, whoa, you didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden it just all started falling into place. And I don't know if that's every thriller or if it was just done like this. But I think I'm here in the thriller world to stay. It was good. I would like to read more thrillers this autumn. This was a beautiful way to begin. It's a beautiful cover. The writing was amazing. Even the acknowledgements, you have to read the acknowledgements. They're beautiful, and I never said that about acknowledgements before, but just there's a little bit of the story interwoven in them about girls and females and how they're treated in society even now. Yes, I would recommend this book. Now, those were the 7 books I read in July. It was a really good reading month. I felt like I read a lot of good books this month. There were some mid books in there, but like The Grace Year, The Summer I Turned Pretty, those books were really good, and I'm so happy I got 2 5-star books out of this month. That's rare nowadays for me. And if you were going to take anything away from this, if you're more of the romance, fluffy sort of reader, go read The Summer I Turned Pretty. And if you're more of the thriller, suspense sort of reader, then go read The Grace Year. The Grace Year was my favorite book I read this month, and The Summer I Turned Pretty was my favorite romance this month. I had a really enjoyable reading month. It was so much fun. I've been planning out my videos lately, and I'm just so happy to be posting on YouTube and be posting on my Instagram. And I want to thank you guys for all the support I've been getting on my reels and in follows on Instagram. It's really incredible, and I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you have any books you think I should read next month, and I will add them to my TBR. I'm really interested in, I like every genre, so if you've read a specific book lately that you've been raving about, just add it in the comments and I will try my best to answer you. I'm gonna go continue planning out my videos, what's gonna happen this month. I recently polled on my Instagram and asked what video you guys wanted, and everyone voted, a lot of people voted their Instagram is in charge of what I read for a week. Don't worry, that video will be coming. I'm making it this week because this past week has been really busy. So it will be coming hopefully next Saturday, and I will see you next Saturday or maybe sooner. We'll see how the week goes. Bye!